tuning into Sin's Workshop. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, today we are going to do my September reading wrap-up. Y'all, I think my goal was like 13, 15, 18 books last month. I read 9. But to be fair, 2 of the books I read were 800-page books. So it's kind of like I read 14. It was a really slow reading month for me. Work was kind of hectic, so I felt really drained when I would get home at the end of the night and put my son to bed, and then I still have to be up at 6 in the morning. So now once he's asleep, I also just pass out. I used to stay up an extra 30 minutes to an hour to read, but I just can't do that anymore. I just don't have the energy for it. And my beauty sleep is important to me. Otherwise, I'm really cranky. And, being anemic doesn't help my crankiness. And also, I'm a woman, so, my hormones. I'm very self-aware. So I just don't want to, be drained all the time. So instead of reading every night now, for myself, I just read for my son, and then I go the heck to sleep. And then I wake up in the morning, and then, I haven't been having a lot of time either in the morning reading for the 30 minutes that I usually do. I still squeeze in that 30 minutes at some point in my day, but sometimes when I work at 9 in the morning, I just don't have the time because I take the bus to work. So it was a little bit of a slow reading month for me. Life happens, but I still thoroughly enjoyed every single, well, not every single, there was one that I didn't really enjoy, but for the most part, I did. So first up is going to be Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. This is the second novel in the Last Hours trilogy. Honestly loved it. I loved it. I love Cassandra Clare's writing. I really love how her writing style has grown, because I've read all the other Shadowhunters books except for the Red Schools of Magic, that trilogy. That is also incomplete. I've read all of her previous novels, and I've seen her development as a writer. Her books have gotten thicker, but in that thickness, comes more character dynamics and character growth, and I'm really invested in who these characters are. Honestly, more so than the Shadowhunter world, because the Shadowhunter world, it is evolving, but again, this takes place, after the Infernal Devices, before the Mortal Instruments. So you're seeing the Shadowhunter Society at an older stage. I wouldn't mind seeing an even older Shadowhunter story. I think that would be really, really cool. But I love the storytelling, and I love the universe, but what really gets me is those characters, and I love the character dynamics, and I love the characterization. Honestly, when I finished reading this book, I could not get book 3 in my hands fast enough, so I kind of derailed my TBR so that I could go grab book 3, which I already owned, obviously, grab book 3, and then start reading that one. So we'll talk about that one in a minute. But after that, I read My Salty Mary. Oh my God. I love this book. First of all, thank you again to the publisher for giving me an arc of this book. I love every single book. My Lady Jane, My Plain Jane, My Calamity Jane, My Contrary Mary, and My Salty Mary. I love what the Janies, the 3 authors, Cynthia Han, Jodi Meadows, and Brody Ashton, I love what they have done here. And this is a Little Mermaid retelling, in a sense. Yes, you have your Little Mermaid, and the story starts kind of the way Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid ends. She's expecting to, turn into foam because she won't kill Charles. And instead she becomes a pirate. And I love that. I love that she's a pirate. And then she enters a pirate contest so she can fight for equality for all the other female pirates out there. And it's just a great, fun adventure. And I was smiling from beginning to end with this book. It follows 3 different POVs. Her cousin Jack, who is the son of the Sea Witch, and then the love interest Tobias. And they're so memorable. Their voices are very distinct. The pacing is amazing. I devoured this book. Absolutely devoured it. And, you know, it's a tough one to follow, but to follow it, I did. And that was with In the Garden of Monsters. I love the great Greek myth retelling. I do. I absolutely love Greek mythology. This is supposed to be a retelling of Hades and Persephone. And you know what? I didn't actually write this down in my notes, but this is what I was saying to everyone. It really reminded me of Lauren Kate's Fallen series, and I loved that series. However, I think the prologue in this book is what really did a disservice, because right at the beginning you know exactly what the premise is, but it took away some of the mystery with the story. It did take away some of that mystery, which I don't think helped, because it made the story kind of boring, because it's like, okay, I already know which one of these characters is supposed to be Hades. I already know what the deal is with you. I wanted some more mystique. And I think if the prologue hadn't existed, the story would have had more mystery and intrigue to it. It also doesn't help that one of the characters is Salvador Dali. He's not my favorite historical artist. I'm not a huge fan of his artwork, but also because I did take an art history class in college. What I've learned of him, he's not really my favorite person either. I don't think he's someone I would have liked if I ever met him. And I'm quite weird and contrary myself. But I don't know. I think she did nail his voice and who he was as a person. And that's probably why I didn't like it, because he was very just kind of obnoxious and I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. I'm just like, I'm not here for that. Sorry. She did capture who he was, and that's part of the problem for me personally, because I don't really like Salvador Dali. I don't, unfortunately. So it reminded me too much of a young adult novel that I think was executed much better. I didn't really like the Fallen movie that they made. It could have been 10 times better, but read the book. The books are great. And I think it's pretty much kind of like the same premise, but the book series by Lauren Kate, Fallen, executed the premise much better than this one did. And I don't know, it was kind of boring, it kind of dragged. I did like the plot twist between her and Demeter. I thought that was interesting. But unfortunately, that was the only interesting part of the story, which, meh. After that, I read The Extraordinary Disappointments of Leopold Berry. This was the Barnes & Noble young adult pick for September. This was a really pleasant surprise to me, because I read Miss Peregrine's House for Peculiar Children. I found it boring. I really did find it boring. I didn't even bother reading the rest of the series. I was just like, really? This series? This author? This book was phenomenal. First of all, the pacing was really, really great. It was concise. It was to the point. Some of the chapters were like sometimes only a page and a half long. And that really got that pacing across. You know, it kept that momentum throughout the story. And, you know, poor Leopold. He has the worst luck. Okay, I still think he's the chosen one, even though everyone keeps testing him and says, you're pretty much average in every single way and mediocre. And he's just like, well, that kind of sucks. So for me, I was just like, I liked that he was so average. And yes, he had magic and he had power, but he wasn't like your token chosen one trope. I still think he's the chosen one. In fact, they told him like, yeah, you're not the chosen one. Sorry, bye, loser. And then He gets the worst. Larry Berry, Lunch Tray Larry. He gets the worst nicknames, this poor guy. But he goes on a phenomenal adventure. And you want to know something? He has a great bromance with Emmett. And nothing is allowed to happen to him. Nothing. He's great. He's a great sidekick. And I'm also glad that they didn't turn his friend into the chosen one. Because it's just like, oh, well, that's also kind of cliche and eek. And I'm glad that they didn't. I'm glad that our chosen one is kind of unknown at this point. Then there's a lot of mystery in it. I mean, I host the book club, so we were like talking about all of our theories and all of the questions that we have and all of, you know, what we suspect is going to happen next. So it was a really fun, engaging, interesting novel. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's really fast paced. You could read through it so quickly. I was reading through it so quickly. Like, it just keeps on going. It doesn't stop. It keeps you hooked. It keeps you entertained. It keeps you engaged. So after that, I read My Imaginary Mary. You know what I love about these books by the Janies? You don't have to read them in any particular order. You really don't. So this was my book club pick for the Read with Sims Workshop Book Club. First of all, I love how the authors are always breaking the fourth wall throughout any of their books, and this one in particular. And the reason I say this one in particular is because that voice is very modern, but again, the book is following Ada Lovelace and Mary Shelley, so it is not a modern setting. You know, it's gothic, it's, you know, historical fiction on it, honestly. But you have that atmosphere, you have that tone, but it balances out so well with the tone, that modern tone that the authors are using to break the fourth wall. Sorry. You're so engaged, you know, so when the authors address you, the reader, you're just like, oh my god, it's hilarious, it's great. And even though Mary Shelley and Ada Lovelace, you know, didn't know each other in real life, the friendship, the dynamic these two built, it's really great because you have these two things. You have imagination, and then you have the scientific mind. Imagination being Mary, and then the scientific mind being Ada Lovelace. I think people think that to be a scientist, you cannot have innovation without creativity. In order to be truly innovative, you have to have a creative thought process, you know? And these two really balance each other out so wonderfully. She is that creative spark to Ada's scientific one, and Ada's scientific spark balances out and Mary's imaginative one. And to just see that concept of you can't have brilliance without creativity brought to life by these two characters who are based on real life women, it was phenomenal. It was heartwarming, it was thoughtful, and their friendship is so great. I mean, these two girls are constantly lifting each other up. They're there for each other through thick and thin. I mean, they run off together to Paris and then to, where is it, Switzerland? Yeah, to find Lord Byron to help Mary use her Fae powers, because turns out she's part Fae, to continue to bring Pan, first name Peter, from turning back into a automaton. He's a real boy. It's great. All the literary references are amazing, and I love every single one of them, and I love this book so much. Just read it. Just read it. Okay? Honestly, you're not going to be disappointed. So, after that, I read The Forest of Silence. Again, it's the first book in the Del Toro's Quest series. I'm including this one because I read a chapter every night for my son. And I feel like this novel series has kind of like drifted off into obscurity, and that kind of makes me sad because it's so good. It's short, it's quick. You know, if you have a kid who's like struggling to read, I mean, this is a series I read when I was a kid. If you have a kid and you're, you know, struggling to like get them interested in reading, the chapters are really short and sweet. My son, he's 5, he loves it. Well, my husband has a theory that maybe he doesn't so much love it so much as he just loves me reading to him. but I'll take what I can get. Building a love of reading. We're doing good. In any case, it has adventure. It follows through characters. It's a 7-book series. I have them all right here. But it's so good, and it moves really quickly, and it's engaging to the point where once my kid was asleep, I was like continuing to read the book. I'm just like, I need to, even though I already know the book, I'm like, I want to keep reading this one. I would read a chapter to him every night, and he's like really excited for it. So again, if you're a parent who's kind of struggling, try just reading a chapter of Del Toro's Quest every night to them, you know, or any book for that matter. Anything works. And trying is better than not trying. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That's the saying, right? In any case, it's an excellent novel. It's short, it's sweet, it's concise. It's a great adventure. It's like action-packed. It has 3 really great characters who will balance each other out. There was an anime based on it, but it didn't really get really good reviews, unfortunately. And it didn't even complete it. I'm sad. But honestly, check it out. Forest of Silence. We're on book 2 now, so of course book 2 will be part of my next month's wrap up. Maybe even book 3. After that, I read Chain of Thorns, the 3rd novel. I told you I couldn't get to it fast enough. To the point where I'm like reading it, and I read pretty fast. You know, I probably read 2 pages a minute, and it was just so somewhat frustrating sometimes because I'm so invested in these characters and their lives. I wasn't reading it fast enough. So what did I do? I went and I got the audiobook. Why? Because I wasn't reading it fast enough. So I got my audiobook and I'm listening to it at 2 times speed, and I hated putting the book down. So I was like listening to the book on constantly. So I'm like, I need to see what happens next. I need to see what happens next. First of all, the production for the audiobook is phenomenal. Loved it. And I love the story, and I love the characters. There were some really heartbreaking moments, but the moment the characters kind of got their act together, I was just like, yes, finally. Again, I love the Shadowhunters universe, but I'm really just reading this for the characters. Like, I love the world. Yeah, I like the magic and the fight against Belial, but I love that this story is like mature for young readers without being so juvenile. Like, it's just so good, and you have romance, you have action, you have LGBTQ representation. It's just phenomenal, and I loved it very much. So just read it. After that, I read Stranger Skies. This is a sequel to Curious Tides, and you want to know something? I liked the first book. I really did. There were parts of the first book where I felt like it was a little convoluted at times, and that really did slow down the pacing for me. However, this book, it was just so much better. I really, really enjoyed this book. I had a hard time putting it down because I did not want to put it down. It moves much faster. I really love the character. Okay, so here's the thing. I think part of another reason why I wasn't so in love with the first book was because I don't think Emery was a good love interest for Baz. She does not deserve him at all. She just uses him. And that really bothered me. However, in this one, he finally gets a deserving love interest. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's awesome, and I loved it. He gets a really good love interest here, and he really comes into himself and his power as a character. The same thing with Emery. I think she's dealing with a lot of grief and a lot of questions with her power and the decisions she made. She has a lot of regret, so she is also growing. There was only one character that I didn't like, and that was Romy. I hated Romy, actually. I was just like, God, and she has to be alive. I'm like, maybe she can just die. She's so self-righteous. She's like, thinks she's awesome. She's like, I'm always right. I'm always right. Like, no, you are not always right. You're awful. She's kind of awful. And she's Baz's sister. I'm like, ugh. I don't like you. I really don't. I don't like her at all. She's just awful. Awful. And she's so judgy and judgmental. And she's just awful. I couldn't stand her. But this book leaves off on a cliffhanger. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. because now I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in the third book, because this one itself was kind of awesome. This one I really, really liked way more than Curious Tides. Like, Curious Tides was good and all, but it was a little convoluted at times. You know, it was just slightly convoluted. That I was just like, meh. Liked it, didn't love it. This one I loved. And then the last book of the month, Seasons of Chaos. This is a sequel to Seasons of the Storm, so it follows the elements. I'm going to say this. The ending is predictable. Like, you already know what's going to happen at the end. However, there were some interesting plot twists in there between Doug and Kai. And those were really interesting. I thought those offered a lot to the plot. And I liked their journey, you know. Yeah, I saw the ending coming a mile away, but I wasn't bored. Even though I knew how the story was going to end, I was not bored with the predictability of it, because it had a lot of really good elements, you know. It still was high tension, high fast pace. It still had really good characterization and character dynamics. And then adding Doug's perspective into the story, it really gave the story what it needed in order to keep you, the reader, engaged. So, yeah, honestly, really great. It was really good reading month. I only had that one book that disappointed me, but otherwise, excellent reading month. In any case, I hope you all had a wonderful September. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your book-loving friends. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.